Okay, so good morning, everyone. Thank you very much to be with us. One more Athena talk, one before the end of this season. We are grateful to have with us a Greek in diaspora, a distinguished scientist, Lazaros Nalpandidis, who is a professor of autonomous systems and head of group in Technical University of Denmark. Some things about Lazaros, apart that he's Paukara, and if you know about Greek football, you can understand more than myself. He's a professor at the Department of Electrical and Photonics Engineering in DTU. Previous academic and research positions in Aalborg University and in Royal Institute of Technology, Stockholm, Sweden, KTH. His research interests include autonomous systems and robot perception. His work has received more than 4,500 citations, and today we are very happy that he's going to speak to us about autonomous robots in agriculture. How far are we? A topic very related to the disciplines that Hellenic Mediterranean University is involved, and we are very happy to give the floor to Lazaros for the next 40 minutes, and then a short discussion as usual will follow. Lazaros, thank you again from our community, from the Hellenic Mediterranean University. Thank you again for your contribution. Thank you.
Konstantinos, it's a real pleasure to be here. I'm really thankful to you and the Hellenic Mediterranean University for having me here, inviting me to give this little talk and share with you a little bit of the research activities that we're running here in Denmark and talk to you about the things that I am so passionate about. Let me start trying to share my slides here. So I guess you can all see a very discreet logo of our university. Lovely. Great. So as Konstantinos was so kind to say, my name is Lazaros Nalpandidis. I'm coming from Greece, but I work the last 13 years here in Copenhagen at the Technical University of Denmark, DTU. My research is around autonomous robotic systems, and my own personal interest is more on the perception side, on the computer vision side of those systems. So that's going to be a little bit the angle that we take along this talk. I'm heading a group over here of people, so I'm not alone, and the group is focused on perception and cognition for autonomous systems. As I already told you, if you look at the Danish map, DTU is located in Copenhagen, at the capital, or to be honest, like some 10 kilometers outside the capital. So we're at the outskirts, and the university has a relatively long history. It goes back to the founder of electromagnetism, so who, apart from electromagnetism, he also founded DTU. So Hans Christian Ørsted created DTU as an institution that should provide benefit to society. And Polytechnic University, whose role was to benefit society. And if you come and visit us, and I would be very thrilled to have some of you visiting us here, this is how our main building, our office building, looks like, and this is one of those rare occasions where sun is shining above Copenhagen. But apart from this building, we have some remarkable facilities, like this one here, which is a huge balloon, you might call it. It's an inflated structure. We would call it DTU ASTA for Autonomous Systems Test Arena. And this inflated balloon serves as a very nice test area for our robotic systems. So instead of going outside, and sometimes the beautiful Danish weather is not so beautiful, so there, if you would like to test some robotic systems at big scale, like a real mobile robot or some drones or something that that combines a drone and a mobile robot, you need the cubic meters to deploy them, and this facility provides us exactly with it. And yeah, so we're trying to set the good example to the neighborhood as well. So we stay sometimes very late doing research in there. So if you come and visit us, you can see that inside Asta, it looks like this. So we have, as I said, space for mobile robots and drones to operate next to them. But we also have a little pool that we use to have some maritime research, like both underwater and also surface vehicles. Again, maybe collaborating with drones or other type of robotics technologies. We're also very proud of our motion capture system, this metallic structure that you can see on the rightmost picture, where we have a number of cameras, specialized cameras that can track what is moving inside this volume, and we can actually localize it with sub-millimeter accuracy. So that's a very good way of ground truthing our approaches and checking how well our robots behave. In general, we as a group, we like to call ourselves as the people who deploy robust autonomous systems. So we want not only to do robotics in a lab, we don't want to do robotics just for the sake of papers, which are also very welcome, but we want to go out and deploy them for real and take on the real challenges that the real world poses on our systems. So we will go to a vessel tank, so the inside of a tanker, and go and inspect it autonomously with drones that fly in these claustrophobic environments. We will deploy oral technologies and computers and sensors on vessels that actually connect the two sides of a Danish city, the city of Aalborg, that has this fjord, this water body, and the two sides of the city can be connected by such a little vessel, a little ferry, and trying to make it autonomous was one of the big successes of our group some 3 years ago. Then we go out in competitions with this mobile manipulator. Here you can see this robot arm on top of this mobile base that goes out and tries to solve a riddle and compete with the best other technical universities around the world. And most importantly for our talk today, we are actually not afraid to take our robots and deploy them in real fields in the nature next to cows or any other agricultural activity, and then expose them to the weather. Yes, so our group, as I told you, it's called Perception and Cognition for Autonomous Systems, and we want to perceive, we want to give our robots the ability to see and understand what exists around them. We want them to be able to tell what's happening, and for a robot, that's a little bit different compared to a computer. So we often are asked whether we're doing computer vision, and in reality, we're doing something more than that. We're doing computer vision under budget, under computational budget that we have available, under timing budget, because you need to make a decision now and not wait for 2 minutes before making a decision if you have a robot. So it is all the technicalities, those subtle technicalities that put limitations on the kind of solutions you are able to deploy on such a robot. So that's an interesting research field, according to us. So here and now, in this talk, I would like to motivate everybody, and the world is a strange place in the last years, and I mean many wars and many uncertainties show up. And we often forget that even if wars go out and if all uncertainties resolve themselves, there will still be this need of humanity to take care of our home planet. And the United Nations have come up with those sustainable development goals, and that reminds us that we're not allowed to do whatever we want with the planet if we want to give it also to our kids, and they're our grandchildren. Also, an interesting motivation factor for this talk is that when I was a kid in the beautiful city of Kilkis, I was being taught at school that I share this planet with 5 billion people, and that was back in the 80s. And now my daughters are being taught at their school here in Denmark that they are sharing their planet with around 8 billion people. Quite some increase. So the interesting thing is that this trend is supposed to go up over the years. So we expect to to have our population growing unless something very stupid happens. So today is the day in the history of our planet where this planet needs to produce more food than ever before to feed all the human population. And the interesting thing is that tomorrow, the same planet will need to produce even more food because there will be even more people living on it. So it becomes very obvious that we need to produce more food than ever and being able to scale up this production capability and also do it in a sustainable manner so that we can continue doing it in the years to come. So how can we enhance this ability of agricultural production while at the same time respecting the planet and the boundaries, the planetary boundaries? So my answer to that is robots can actually play a big role in that. And robots can only be deployed there if they are able to perceive their environment. So many autonomous robots are already found in semi-structured or structured environments. For example, in warehouses and in manufacturing sites, you will see a lot of robots being deployed there. And the reason is like those environments are quite known. They have a very clear structure. Those environments are protected, so they are under a roof. And they're pretty standardized. So we build it once and we keep it like that. However, in agriculture, things are completely the opposite. And that's why we don't actually see too many autonomous robots out there, because every agricultural field is a one-off, right? It's a completely unstructured environment that will be changing over time, where it's exposed to the weather. And yeah, I mean, you know little about that. So how can we make agricultural robots operate autonomously in those challenging environments? So my answer to that is perception is the key. Perception is the term that can actually be added on a robotic system to make it robust to difficult, on unseen, on unforeseen situations, and also adaptable, being able, making it able to operate in new or changing situations. Like a field in agriculture is changing every single day. I mean, visit the same field with like 2 weeks apart. It's completely different environment because the plants have grown, the weather has changed. It's a different, just a different environment. So how can we add robustness and adaptable in the mix? So we have been trying different things in our lab, and there are two main avenues of achieving this. Being a robotics lab. The one is take the toy robots that we develop in the lab and try to mature them, try to make them more and more robust in order to be able to be deployed in agriculture. And this is the left side of my slide here. The other avenue of achieving that is actually working with the people who already know how to make robust agricultural machinery, like the manufacturers of tractors or combine harvesters, like the Fendt machines that you see here. We have strategic partnership with a company called ACO, who is the mother company of those machines here, and then work with those manufacturers to add our computers, our sensors, our AI on top of their machines to try and achieve the same goal. So we actually have been trying with both with remarkable success. So talking with the people in agriculture, it becomes clear that there are two objectives before a system can be left autonomously in a field. We need to ensure that this vehicle needs to be safe, and the operations of this vehicle need to be precise enough. So we need to be able to provide a green tick for both of those factors. So I will start talking about safety, and I will also address precision in my next slide. So let's start with safe operation of autonomous vehicles in agriculture. So we have partnered with a number of partners here in Denmark within this SAVA project, like a national funded innovation project, which is safety in autonomous vehicles in agriculture. And what we want to achieve in this project is make this machine smart enough to see a little deer that runs inside a crop field, or be able to tell a human if the human is partially hidden by the environment. More interestingly, at least in a Danish or North European context, those baby deers are actually like to hide themselves in the crop fields. So when the time comes to harvest wheat, it's the period where deers have their babies, and those babies, they like to be protected in this environment. So it's not uncommon that a combined harvester, apart from wheat, it actually consumes some baby deers as well. And that is a big problem from many perspectives. And being able to have sensors that can actually maybe see through the plants and observe a baby deer that is hiding there, that's going to be interesting. And of course, cameras cannot do it because the deer is behind the plants. However, the research question of this project is, are there other sensing modalities that could actually help us with that? Can radars see through vegetation? Can thermal cameras be used to see through vegetation? And most importantly, how can one bring all those modalities together, RGB, thermal, radar, you name it, and combine them in a single AI system that, based on the situation, can actually take the best decision. So if it's a nice sunny day with low vegetation, RGB is all you need, I guess. On the other hand, if it's a foggy day with low visibility, maybe radar should be given priority instead of camera, because camera is quite blurred out, actually. So those are the research questions that we're trying to solve there. And apart from those big machines, like, I mean, over here with the tractors and the combine harvesters, there are other nice use cases, like, I mean, those grass clipping machines, or in many environments. So we went out, and if you want to do AI nowadays, the biggest requirement is that you have data enough to train your models. And we actually did some analysis, and we saw that there are actually quite a few data sets that contain classes of objects that are of interest for our project. So yes, so there is a starting point, but I mean, this is only a starting point. What you actually need to do is you need to actually go out and start gathering images and gathering examples of cases. Most importantly, you need to go out with all the sensors that you want to consider and gather the images at the same time. So you have the RGB version of this scene, but at the same time, you might have the thermal version of the same scene and the radar version of the same scene. So you can actually use the obvious things on an RGB to tell the computer what's happening in the radar version of the scene. Yes. Other interesting sensor modalities, apart from cameras and LiDARs and radars, are actually thermal for obvious reasons, as I already told you, but there's also another another family of sensors that are called event cameras. Event cameras are a pretty interesting new technology. I'm not sure how aware you are, but let me briefly tell you that an event camera can actually operate at frame rates that are crazy high. I mean, some hundreds of thousands of frames per second. But the trick is that the camera is not capturing every pixel all the time in every capturing cycle. It actually only captures the pixels where there is a change. So if you have a perfectly static environment, then nothing gets captured. You sample your sensor 100,000 times a second, but still you get black images because you don't get a response. But suddenly, if in your static background a human starts walking, then you get response in the perimeter of the human. So that's actually pretty cool because there's only a handful of pixels that are triggered. Therefore, the bandwidth is enough so that we can just sample this sensor very fast. The interesting thing about these cameras is that, I mean, they are found to be able to operate also in very low lighting conditions. So they don't rely on a lot of light arriving in it to capture things. It's just the changes, right? So they can operate in a night environment like this, where little is seen. You can actually get a pretty nice thing that there are actually those little poles here on the left. And actually in front of this white van, there's actually another vehicle here, which might be visible if you're very careful in the RGB image. It becomes very obvious in the event camera image. So that's actually a very interesting technology to keep in mind. Another interesting thing is no matter what sensors we will ever deploy, those sensors will be failing. So how do we deal with that? And I think that's a beautiful case where theoretical computer vision can actually have an impact on the applied computer vision that we're doing here. So many of you have probably seen those RGBD sensors. This is a Intel RealSense sensor where we can get both the image and also the depth of each pixel. However, there are some limitations in this sensor. So those sensors can actually see up to a certain depth. So things that are further away, they kind of like get blacked out. And also those sensors are a little bit sensitive to structures. For example, this reflective plaquette here is getting blacked out because the sensor doesn't know what's happening. It sees some reflections, so it doesn't know what's happening here, so it blacks it out. And also here, those areas are too far away, they are blacked out as well. However, if our robot were to operate in such an environment, it should actually know the whole depth and not only partially the depth of the environment if it's to take some serious decisions. So therefore, we have in my group, we have recently come up with a way of filling those gaps practically. So respecting all the measurements and filling the gaps with estimations of what is happening here. And we are using something called steered marigold to do that. That is based on diffusion models to kind of like come and in paint the missing depth values here. And how you do that, you are based on the visual appearance of the missing areas, and you do the best as a human would have done to understand what the depth of this missing area would be. So our method has been found to outperform every other competing algorithm in this regard. And yeah, we hope that we can make our sensors more reliable, even in cases where, technologically speaking, they're meeting their borderline of operational environments. So that was a little bit about how to ensure more safety and all the activities that we're running on that. We're running more activities on how to do the operation of robots in agriculture more precise. As an example, I can mention this research activity where we focused on grasslands, and we wanted to do weeding in grasslands. So we wanted to maintain the useful flora, but get rid of those annoying weeds that infestate the field. So this bad guy here, this weed, is called rumex. The Greek word for this is lapatho or lapato. So we wanted to be able to see rumex. And to be honest, using robots for weeding is not a new thing. Many colleagues in the past and for quite a few years now have been successful in that. And that's a German robot from University of Bonn some years ago that has been doing weeding. However, as you can see here, in their use case, they have nice rows of crops, and they have nice brown soil in between. So whatever lies in the brown soil, whatever green thing lies here in between, that's a weed that needs to be removed, right? And then it becomes a little bit tricky if something is happening along this line of our useful crop. But again, you always have a nice brown background. So this is a green on brown problem where it's relatively easy to say, okay, 90% of my pixels are brown. Let me not focus on that. Let me focus on these 5 or 10% of pixels that actually something green lives there, and try to make a decision about those. So that takes the vast majority of problem out of the way and allows you to focus your attention and resources on a handful of the available pixels. However, in our use case, it's a green and green environment. It's a green and green problem. So this is a computer vision nightmare because color information, which is the main thing for cameras and the main thing for human perception, is actually going out of the window. So you need to be able to identify this green rumex on this green carpet of flora beneath it. So how on earth do you do that? So we had a project that aspired to combine many aspects. We were the weed detection guys, so we were trying to find these rumex plants. We had also some people who would actually make a plan of how we need to travel along the field. We had some partners that would try to find technologies to kill this weed in an ecological friendly manner. So either have a laser beam and go and like a sword in Star Wars, go with the laser beam and then cut the plant, or have some electrodes to apply electricity and then burn the roots with electrocution. And most importantly, we had the support of the European GPS system called Galileo and the high precision, so we could actually record the positions of those weeds that we identified, so we could revisit them in future iterations. So in case our electrocution or our laser weeding was not entirely lethal for the plant, we would revisit the plant again. And the idea was the same as the robotic vacuum cleaner, those Roombas that you might have at your homes, that there's no 100% guarantee that they will clean the environment perfectly, but there is the promise that this little machine can keep on coming and coming and coming until your floor is perfectly clean. And that's the same thing here, right? It's a robot. I mean, it doesn't need to go to sleep. It doesn't need to go on vacation. So it can just be there. Yeah, so in that project, we developed this prototype here, which most interestingly for us at DTU, it carries the the camera system to capture data of the weeds. And then the whole system was integrated on this bigger robot on the right, where our camera is now over here. And beneath this box, we have the laser and the electrocution systems hidden so that they are a little bit protected, so they won't be allowed to harm other people. And yes, so we integrated everything and we tested it. And as you can see, the speed is not the most breathtaking aspect of such a system, but the system was found to be able to operate autonomously and identify rumex plants and then kill them. And yeah, even if the speed is tuned down, again, like the autonomous nature of this is making it capable of operating by itself. So I told you that we need to capture data or capture images to train our AI models. And I show you that we went out to do that. So we had, a lot of visits in different farms to go and gather data. And we annotated those data. So we kind of like manually indicated where is the plant, right? So we started with those well-known bounding boxes. And then we took this a step further, because in many cases, it's interesting to have a bounding box as here is a rumex weed, but if you really want to interact, if you really want to take your laser beam and go and cut it, I mean, a big bounding box is not exactly what you need, because, okay, what exactly do you do with this bounding box? Do you take your laser and start scanning the whole area back and forth until you have covered it all. I mean, this is slow and this is also very energy hungry. So that means that your autonomy lifespan of your robot is decreasing because it consumes a lot of energy covering this whole area. It needs to go back and charge more often. So what we did is we tried to also annotate or indicate what is the root point of the plant. And also in some cases, like in this one over here, this root is not seen because it's hidden by the plant itself. So we also drew a circle around this point to indicate what is the expected area where the root actually lies. So obviously, the more certain we were about where the root is, the smaller the circle would be because the certainty is high. And if we are uncertain, then this circle would be larger because we're not entirely sure. So we need to have a larger area to cover. So we have done all this difficult work of gathering and annotating those images, and we have actually decided to make it publicly available. So release openly these data sets to other researchers to come up with their own algorithms, to come up with their own suggestions on how this field could be further improved. Yeah, so we tried to gather different farms in different dates, kind of covering different weather conditions as well, and captured many images over a period of time. The interesting thing while doing that was that we found out that when we visited the same field on the same day and looking for the same type of weeds, so looking for rumex plants, actually those plants were actually looking similar to one another. The reason could be that, those plants were actually all relative, so they are genetically connected. It's the seeds of one that has given rise to the others. It is because the weather conditions were the same, because it was the same day we were visiting the field, and all these plants were actually in their lifetime, they were exposed in the same weather conditions because they are sharing the same field, right? They were growing in the same field. So what we found, it was that the visual appearance of that species in that field on that day had relatively low variance. So then the idea came to our mind. Does that mean that, if we only have very few leaves to train a model, could that model actually be able to describe and detect all the other plants, even if we didn't have images of those? So the idea was, can we maybe focus on a handful of weeds, 4, 5, 10 weeds, take some leaves, and then use those leaves to synthetically generate artificial plants and artificial examples to train our model. So what we did is we went to 10 plants and actually annotated or cut out the leaves of those 10 plants. We created a little library like that. Then we actually took a number of those leaves, and we took also some images of clean backgrounds, backgrounds where no rumex was there. And we would write a little script that would take those plants here and we will put them in a circular manner, in a radial manner like that, and create artificial plants with those leaves, right? And of course, it can stretch those leaves a little bit, it can play a little bit with the color, and there are many parameters that you can randomize over there and create those artificial rumex plants out of a handful of leaves. So once now we have a tool to generate those synthetic images, we can generate as many as we want, and we can generate large enough so that we can train a neural network to do that. Then once the neural network is trained, we can actually start feeding it with real images from plants that we have never seen before. And the interesting thing is, yes, our model actually works. which is super. You can see that those detections are not perfect, right? I mean, this plant is only partially found and some areas is not found, but I mean, maybe this is just good enough. Then we know that a plant exists there, so we can go and zoom in and then be more attentive on it. So that was a very interesting observation that led to a very interesting solution. Then we started playing, saying, okay, how many leaves do we need in order to play this game? I mean, do we need 20 leaves? How many do we need? And we started playing with different combinations, and we ran it multiple times so that we have some statistical significance here. And it seems like after 9 leaves, the performance of the algorithm kind of like plateaus. It's getting stable. And of course, additional leaves might get you slightly better and better and better. But I mean, you have gotten practically where you would like to be or where you can be with 9 leaves. So that was really interesting finding that we could actually go there, visit a new field, spend half an hour annotating 9 leaves, and use those to train a model and then deploy the robot for the rest of the day on that field. And that would be enough to detect the vast majority of Rumex plants in there, which was cool. And I mean, we published these results and we almost won a prize in the IROS conference. We actually ended up not getting it, so but we were among the 3 shortlisted papers for that agricultural robotics prize. Yes, but then again, in reality, if you want to have good performance, you need to go out, you need to gather images, and you need to annotate it themselves, because then you can train a model, as I told you. So another way, I show you a way of kind of like cheating a little bit and getting away with only minor annotations. But the holy grail of the situation would be like, could I get away without doing no annotations? There's something called self-supervision, so self-supervised learning, that promises to solve this problem. Not entirely, but it can actually reduce a lot the number of the amount of labeled data required for a task. So in that research domain, you're using self-supervision in order to pre-train a model. So you feed a model with a lot of unlabeled data, just images coming from agriculture. So we found data sets that had like aerial images or farmlands. You can see they're pretty different from what we are using. Other that have weeds, many more weeds than we want to address, but also like, I mean, general images from the internet, from grasslands. And then you let this model like train itself. I can get into the technical details, but I think it becomes a little bit too nerdy for what this talk should be about. But the idea is, by providing it with enormous amount of images without any labels, right? So we can just scrap the net or find the data and then we feed it. And then the model learns how agricultural images look like. So it can actually learn an encoder that can extract significant features, learns how significant features in agricultural images look like. Then we can actually take this pre-trained model and fine-tune it or our own labeled data, but now the model is pre-trained, so it only needs a very little amount of labeled data. And we found out that we can actually match the performance of models that were exclusively trained with vast majority of annotated data. So this yellow line is the traditional models that have been trained on huge data sets like ImageNet. And on the red line is our approach. And you can see, like, I mean, when we have a lot of images, practically, if I zoom in, it's not exactly the same, but practically we get the same performance. But as we get fewer and fewer images to fine tune, we have a significant performance over the traditional methods. So actually self-supervised learning specifically for agriculture can actually give us a huge advantage over what we can achieve otherwise. So that was another nice way of cheating a little bit and seeing how we can get away with fewer annotations of the images. Then we were quite happy that we can actually cheat and have ways of training models. But then again, all the things that I have told you about have been finding a plant, like a bounding box around it, or estimating where it should hit. What we want to do is, ideally, we would like to be able to have a robot that has such a good understanding of the plant so that it can actually go and with a surgical hit, just hit the leaf over here and cut this point over here. And then if you have like a surgical hit here, you can actually get rid of the whole plant with one shot. And I mean, in reality, it won't be a one shot, it's going to be slightly larger, but it's a very surgical targeted shot. So what we did then is, instead of just having the mask of the whole leaf over here, we went and did a fine annotation of the leaf. So apart from the leaf area, we have this blue line, this concatenation of linear segments that actually describes the internal structure of the leaf. And there are three main points. There is the apex point on the right of the leaf, there is the basal point at the center of the leaf, and there is the stem point where kind of like the stem starts. So we had this fine description of leaves, and we took the annoying task of actually doing it for all our images. And you can see here on the right upper images that we went and really annotated those images with this fine annotation and trained a model that will be able to actually recreate this structure. And indeed, by training a model like that, we can actually have results from a model that can actually not only find the leaves, but actually find the structure of the leaves, giving us the perfect point to go and apply our limited dosage of laser beam and kill the plant, or make a major damage to the plant with using minimal resources energy-wise. So this fine-grained detection of the plant characteristics has been pivotal in making such a robotic system more viable economically speaking, right? Because now the robot can operate over longer periods of time, so it needs to go back to the base to recharge much more infrequently, because now it can actually be very wise on how and where it uses its energy capacity. So that's good. So we had some very good results, and we also published those results. Those were some examples from cases about improving the precision of agricultural robots, and I have also talked about some cases where we did some considerations and research on how to improve the safety of robotic systems. As I reach to the end of this talk, I would like to kind of like take a step back and revisit with you why on earth are we doing all of this? Why do we want to have autonomous robots in agriculture? And now I'm sharing my dream, and we will soon start a new research project here in Denmark to start moving towards the realization of this dream. And this dream is, imagine robots that can actually operate by themselves and take care of plants on an individual basis. That will allow us to go away from the current agricultural production paradigm that is monoculture. So right now, and for many years, we have been focusing on monocultures to reduce the cost of agriculture. We have huge areas with wheat, and then we have those huge monstrous machines that go there and harvest the wheat. However, if you think about it, this is bad. This is bad because from a biodiversity perspective, a whole area full of wheat is lethal to biodiversity. Also, since you have huge areas with the same species of a plant, if one gets infected, then this infection is very easy to spread in this whole area. So that means we need to be very careful and spray with chemicals again and again, just to make sure that no infestation happens in our field. The paradigm, the agricultural paradigm that our civilization has built upon for many years before mechanization of agriculture was more small scale. It was based on my grandfather's little garden in our village, where he would have 10 tomato plants, and he would have some pepper plants, and he would have some watermelon plants, right? And if his tomatoes plants were infested, the infestation would not go to the pepper plants because it doesn't work there, right? It would be contained over there. So he could actually go to his neighbor and get tomatoes and exchange it for something else that he had. So there was little need for chemical spraying back then, because if something bad happened, it would have been contained. And also from a biodiversity perspective, that was a paradise for bees, for butterflies. In monoculture, all of this is gone, right? It's many things that are lost just to make it more economically profitable to do it like that. On the other hand, those huge machines, those huge tractors and combine harvesters, they cost a lot and they damage the soil. In Europe, our soil is suffering from something called soil compaction. That means like we have driven on it so many times so that water finds it very difficult to penetrate the surface of the soil and get down to the roots. So robots, small autonomous robots, is the solution to all of those problems. Small autonomous robots, if they can be safe enough that we trust them to operate by themselves day and night, they can provide this manual labor that my grandfather used to put. Now the robots can actually put. If we can have robots that are actually can perform accurate interventions, we don't need to have monocultures in order to have those huge, massive machines that just harvest everything. Imagine a robot that can actually harvest strawberries and then go and harvest tomatoes. If this type of agility becomes available, then we can actually have again the same paradigm of those small gardens, or it doesn't have to be on a personal level, but I mean, have this combination of plants, as I have in my image here, like strips of different species, one next to the other. And one species is actually a fence that prohibits diseases to spread all over the place. So this strip cropping or pixel cropping or diverse cropping paradigm, this is the future that will allow us to respect biodiversity, to respect our soil, even respect how nature looks like, because now we can actually leave the area as nature wanted it to be and as water likes to flow in it, and we don't have to kind of like, I mean, just flatten everything out just to make it easy for the combined harvester to operate. Yes, so with this dream, I would like to conclude my talk and thank you all for your attention. As you can imagine, this is something I'm very passionate about, and I would be very glad and thrilled to have a discussion with you. So, Konstantine, back to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lazarus, for this vision. It's not a dream, it's a vision. Very nice vision. And I think that you depict and you reflect the reality and the future. Now the floor. So thank you very much, Lazarus, for your enthusiasm. You spoke like a real Paukara. as a scientist. I can see that we have some questions. I will provide the floor to Samuel for the first question.
You hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you very much on a great and very interesting presentation. And I want to ask you a very short question. How, according to your opinion, agricultural robots can support solution problems of poverty and ensuring food security?
Yes, thank you, Shmuel. That's a wonderful question. One of the additional advantages of going small scale is that we don't need this huge industrial level machinery anymore to produce food. So we don't need flat areas with huge machines that operate on them that are extremely expensive. So if you go to the world south, if you go to India, if you go to Africa, people won't afford such a tractor. People won't afford such a combined harvester. So actually having small robots that are very inexpensive compared to these huge machines that we have nowadays will actually democratize the use of technology for food production and will also allow food production to take place locally, more locally. That helps a lot food security, that takes into consideration the local peculiarities. So it's not that everybody on this planet needs to eat the same type of food. I mean, we can actually, because this is cheap to produce, we can actually produce locally the food that makes sense for our local environment. So yes, to get back to your question, Shmuel, I mean, I think autonomous robotics making the machines become smaller and smaller and more agile and less expensive can actually provide this local manual labor that we're missing to provide food locally and make it more securely. So yes, I totally agree with you. That's according to me the way forward.
Thank you, Lazarus. And Samuel, are you happy with the answer? I suspect yes.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Samuel. The floor is to Mr. Avgeropoulos, Konstantinos, Kostas.
Hello. Hello, Lazarus, also, and all the participants here.
Hello.
I'm also in Denmark. I'm in Aalborg University. I'm doing robotics also in my master's here. And I want to ask you something because I was thinking about to do a startup about agricultural robots and everything. It's very interesting that all have you said and everything. I'm totally agree with you with the polycultural and everything. This is the future. But as far as I searched by now, the Greeks perspective and every perspective in Europe, the farmers they don't have the money to support new technologies and so on. It's very difficult for them because you have to give them back something. I'm talking about money because if you see every aspect of the farmers, they don't have enough money. They don't have the margins to pay new technologies. That's something that it's not trusted yet. So how you can approach them?
That's so correct, Konstantine. Also in our project, we were looking into how can that become a reality, and there are different models.
Lazarus, can I add something on what Konstantinos has mentioned? It's only money, the problem regarding the farmers is only money to purchase equipment, or also is a mentality and training on how to use the equipment. I would like to add also the acceptance of training by them.
No, it's for me, it's both because I have spoken with many farmers here and in Greece and in Spain and Italy before starting this. And it's not only mentality; it's they want to something new, but they don't have the margins. Or if you see, it's difficult for them to support this. Okay, I will buy this. How many years I have the ROI to support this?
That's so correct. I will try to be a little bit provocative and say that contrary to what people believe, I think farmers are very much of tech nerds. I mean, if you go on a modern tractor, I mean, it's more impressive than a Tesla. So I think farmers are actually, and don't think of a farmer that is 65 or 70 years old, right? Imagine like a young farmer. I think they are quite familiar with technology. They have been traditionally quite familiar that investments need to happen. So everybody has a tractor, and sure, there are support from the state to buy a tractor, but that's a huge investment. So they are used to making huge investments, but I totally agree. They need to see the light at the end of the tunnel. They need to see the truth. And this is not something, I mean, for them, if they buy something, they want to know that they can rely on it. Robustness is key. And I mean, this is not a robust technology. This is a research technology. So we are working slowly towards that. Now, how to make it more approachable to farmers? There are models like they don't necessarily need to own those robots. There can be companies that provide robots as a service. So we tried out like what is the concept of how would that concept play? So someone rents out those robots, like, I mean, once in a while. You use it, you do your thing, then you give it out, and then you pay the price that goes for the amount of time you used it. So there are ways around, but it's a mentality, right? I mean, proposing something as important as moving out of monocultures into something completely different. That takes some years to happen. It won't happen overnight, but it is our task as researchers to actually showcase the feasibility and mature the technology so that at some point becomes available. Costa, so it's not something that will happen tomorrow, but it's something we need to work today for this to happen at some point.
Thank you. And now we are moving to Professor Fuskitakis.
Thank you very much, Lazaros. It was very nice to watch your presentation. I currently work on some precision agricultural applications regarding olive tree cultivations.
Okay.
And I won't proceed with details right now. I will take the opportunity to contact you personally and have a discussion because I have very specific problems regarding olive tree cultivations. And one very good solution is to apply some ideas using robotic vehicles. So please allow me to contact you in the next few days to have a Zoom or a Google Meet to say it face to face. And I hope for a further collaboration.
I would be thrilled. I would be thrilled, George, to receive your call or arrange something, either just before summer or after summer. I mean, I'm very open.
It will be before summer by the end of this month. I will try to make a. Thank you very much.
That's great.
Excellent. This is also the purpose of the Athena Talks, to network people and network researchers. And if this is the case, I have some questions to Lazarus. So Lazarus, allow me to make some questions. Probably they are naive. I'm not coming from your area. I'm very much focused on the laser system that you mentioned. So I would like some more information. So in a point of view, in part of your presentation, you mentioned that you have the problem of the color contrast. So if it's green, green is a problem. However, I mean, you can view this, in an opposite way. Since, there are filters, narrow band filters. Like, now we can define any colors with, extremely accuracy. We have LEDs that they emit all the colors by definition on what is blue, what is red, and what is green. So we have also narrow band, filters. So why this is a problem with the green to green. I can understand that you cannot see the contrast, but you can exclude this color and you can detect all the other colors that you are looking for in order to destroy. So what is it? Why, this was a problem? What was the limitation regarding the optical elements that you can introduce to your systems?
Yes.
This is the first question. And the second question regarding lasers. From what it understood, the laser system, works like a lidar, so you can detect the distance of what you would like to observe or to terminate, and then you are using lasers to terminate. This is like more to elaborate this question. And what kind of laser are you using? I mean, if you are using small robots, I suspect that you're using something like CW lasers with a battery powered. Otherwise, it's going to be very challenging, your systems in general. So those are my first three questions.
Amazing questions, Konstantin. I will try to address them. Regarding the sensing and the color to contrast, you're right. We can put more advanced filters. We can add more advanced sensors and then be able to tell the difference. That's one thing. That means that we need to have more expensive sensors on. That's not necessarily always remarkable. So the idea was, can we use something as simple as a camera and try to squeeze the most out of its potential? So that is one of the motivations. The other is that seeing different shades of green or being able to tell different things apart doesn't necessarily tell you what are the good things and the bad things, right? So it is kind of like, a cluttered environment with different species, but which is the good one, what is the bad one? It's very intermixed, right? It's not this simple situation of like, it's brown, it should have been only brown, but now there are some green things. So by default, everything green in this area should be shut down, right? So it's a very very simple if-then scenario. In our case, it's much more complicated. Again, trying to make it cheap. Let's try and see what cameras can actually do, and actually cameras can do quite a lot. So that was my answer to one of your questions. The other is, there are two uses of laser. One is like the lidars that can actually tell the depth. And I was focusing on that a little bit on the safety side. What happens when those sensors can actually only partially see depth and they have gaps, or you have a laser that has also like 16 or 32 beams, right? And what happens in between? You can actually go and interpolate in a very smart, interpolate is probably like, a simplistic explanation, but go and fill the gaps in there with the technology I told you. Now, the type of laser that we're using to control or kill the weeds is a completely different thing, right? It's both lasers, but here we have a high energy lasers. I'm not the partner who actually spent time with that. For me, the goal was to just give the target points to the partners that were developing the laser system. From what I know, it's something like thulium-based laser. I'm not sure exactly. And yes, from what I heard, it's not that it's the most robust solution or the most energy efficient solution, but they expect this technology to mature. So by having a solution that kind of works now, it only becomes better as time passes by. Also, an interesting finding compared to that, Costa, is that the question that we often received is like, okay, by going with a laser and then cutting leaves, do you actually kill the plant? If you go to Rumex has a huge root system. And the answer is no, you won't kill it. But again, it's the same Roomba paradigm, right? Then you will revisit the plant and you will go and mess up with it. And then you will do it again and again and again. And at some point, the plant might die, or even if it doesn't die, it just runs out of energy and nutrition. And it just goes in a zombie state where it cannot reproduce anymore. And that's great. Then you haven't killed it, but you have kind of like neutralized it.
Yeah, Lazarus, I will say, for research purposes, probably, sometimes we borrow approaches from other disciplines. So I will say check, from the curiosity, how do we treat using photodynamic therapy the cancerous cells and not the healthy cells? So you have the combination of two things, the injection of a substance that can be absorbed only, let's say, from what you would like to exterminate, and then the laser is looking for this color because this
But
is
again, I have some colleagues who
Yeah.
I have some colleagues who have been doing active research on it, and what is the exact wavelength, what is the dosage, what is
exactly.
it's depending from species to species, but also from day to day, right? Because on a dry day, the water content of the plant might be lower compared to a period of high rain activity. So it's a very thin window that you need to operate, and of course by understanding the environment, you can probably help to fine-tune your beam. But this is a very valid research question, Costa.
Lazarus, what they are doing is not is not affected externally but internally. So if you have, let's say, something that is disastrous, for the plant, it has a construction that absorbs specific wavelength regarding this fluorescence dye, and then emits this fluorescence dye. So you can see where the problem is, and to terminate. But probably it's a function. But what is a research? I mean, you need to.
That's a cool idea, Costa.
And the last thing that I would like to ask you before I provide the floor to Philippos is you mentioned at the end that, okay, I mean, depending on the season, you can sample some leaves and you can have a very good sample on what you would like to do. However, I mean, we face now the climate change, and you mentioned about sustainable development goals, but climate change is something that we can observe from season to season, from summer to summer. So what about, this? I mean, do you take into account this, the prediction models, or, how are you going to replan and how can I say, reprogram your systems? How the climate change affects your approaches?
Costa, I have to be very honest and tell you that our systems up to this point, they are on a demo level, right? So they are not systems that are expected to operate
Okay, fair enough. Yeah,
over years, right?
yeah.
Now in this new project that we are thinking, that we are about to start, and I cannot provide more details right now, I'm sorry, it will become public in some weeks. In that project, it's the first project we will actually try to have the same system operating over 5 years and actually observe how our algorithms can adapt to changing environment. But right now in agriculture or robotics agriculture environment, usually all the experiments are within a year, maybe a second, but that's about it.
Yes.
So we need to scale it.
Yes. Thank you, Lazarus. And the floor is to Philippos. Philippos, the floor is yours.
Hello, thank you for your presentation. So since I'm from Greece, where it's a much more mountainous region than Denmark, I have to ask, have you worked only on the perception side of the robots, or have you worked also on the mobility of it? Since maybe in Denmark, there are many acres of land that are flat, but in Greece, a lot of the fields are on mountain sides, on hills, and generally they're very difficult to traverse. So have you worked on this problem?
Yes, Philip, a very good question. My group focuses on perception, so that's our main research, right? But then again, we have colleagues and we are collaborating always with people who take care of this mobility aspect. You're very right. That's makes a huge difference. People have been trying with wheeled robots like the ones that I have shown because that's the easiest. But then again, now all those robot dogs become available for cheap, and those are something people are considering. People have also been considering the combination of having a drone that can actually do a fast surveying of hotspots and then deploying a mobile robot that can actually do the control operation. People have been trying to do it only with drones as well, but then again, you have to carry a lot of stuff with you, so the flight time becomes prohibitive. So I know that there are people looking into different locomotion and mobility aspects of that. I think everybody is a little bit intrigued by the availability of those robot dogs and the agile nature of them. But again, that remains to be seen.
Like as I saw, like your robot that you have developed, it seems like a little bit chunky and kind of difficult to. It wouldn't work on a steep hill, right?
No, and I wouldn't trust it to work on a steep hill. You're totally right. You're totally right. So there needs to be, yeah. So I guess the embodiment of the robot needs to reflect the operational environment for sure, for sure.
And finally, like as a prediction, how many years do you think it will take for us to see dependable systems autonomous on fields like large fields, acres long? What do you think?
We have already, right? All those tractors
Yeah.
and combined harvesters, they can go like on autopilot mode, right? I mean, they can do what they do. The thing is not to just have them there autonomously. The thing is to also make their operation more precise and more low scale, if you ask me. So for those robots, for those small scale robots that can actually do harvesting of tomatoes for us and not relying on human labor for that, I think something like 10 years would be like a good time horizon. But you know, when you make this kind of estimations, you always someone who finds it 10 years later and laughs at you. But I would think that 10 years is is
Of
the
course.
best we can actually think about right now.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome, Felipe.
All right. So I could see also my colleague Michalis Fakiotakis, who is leading, our in HMU, the robotics activities among other colleagues. I don't know, Michalis, if you would have any comment or.
Yeah, well, I would just like to thank Lazaros for an excellent presentation. It was certainly very exciting to learn about all these activities and the cutting edge of technologies. I mean, like Costa said, I'm, along with a few other colleagues here in the School of Engineering, involved in the Control Systems and Robotics Laboratory. And one of the key areas of our activities also relates to robotics for agriculture. We have been developing our own mobile platforms. We've been involved in greenhouse robotics, complete systems that undertake inspection, harvesting, and disease identification, as well as spraying, both for indoor and outdoor plantations and cultivations. Actually, we are currently running a research project involved to transferring the skills of farmers, of human farmers, to robotic systems using learning by demonstration principles. So where the knowledge and the know-how of traditional farming can be intuitively passed on to a robot using visual observation or combined with kinesthetic teaching. We are also exploring this type of concepts. And also we are quite heavily involved in research questions such as the ones that you presented related to the identification mainly of fruit and how to optimally identify the required key points for having a robot grasp and then harvest the fruit. And some of the methods that you presented were certainly of interest to us, and like George mentioned before, maybe we can go on and have a more detailed discussion if you have the ability.
I would be thrilled. Michalis.
Some of our colleagues. So I can exchange information and perhaps learn more in depth about these concepts that you're developing. Now, in relation to the question of Philippos previously, I would like to also highlight that we have been developing our own robots with increased terrain traversing capabilities that are capable of operating in steep hills and traversing environments and the more generally difficult and challenging environment found in Greek farming. So I think maybe could be a scope there for combining technologies and to adapt them to other types of environments, maybe not so flat, not so easy, let's say, to traverse using a conventional mobile platform. I mean, I had a number of other questions, but most of them were covered by the previous persons and your responses. I was also interested about your view on the collaboration of mobile robots with aerial robots and drones, but I think that was pretty well covered. And also, of course, the aspect of quadrupeds or other legged robots and how they can be integrated in such endeavors. One question I would like to answer is, I mean, again, your vision of this local micro farming or having multiple cultivations is certainly an interesting one. I'm not sure how well it can be adopted or supported by large companies and so forth, but it certainly is a vision that one. I mean, I know most of us in Greece can relate to, having grown up in this type of bostani, let's say, concept, and for which there are real merits and advantages, as you mentioned previously in your talk. But maybe the question would be, which is the key limiting technology or point that if we were to surpass this and to make it more economically viable, that would help in spreading such a vision or adopting it.
Thank you for the nice words, Michali, and I'm glad if people get excited with things that get me excited. I mean, it's really rewarding. So I'm really looking forward to continuing the discussion and maybe the collaboration with you guys. So that's wonderful. Coming to your question, I think the main limiting factor is the systems that we're proposing are just not robust. For farmers, being able to have their equipment and their machinery operational upon demand is of paramount importance. They have a short window of harvesting and their yield gets more valuable within that window and starts losing value very fast. So they need to be operational. And I think this is the crucial point that needs to be addressed here and now. There are many other shortcomings that will be needed. I mean, is it cheap enough? What is the business model? There are millions of things that need to be addressed, but I think the elephant in the room is the robustness, right? And right now, our robot is a hobby robot, right? I mean, there needs 2 people with PhD and 3 people who are about to get a PhD to get it up and running, and that's not the level that we wanted. But of course, this is an experimental platform. The moment we start kind of like fixing solutions, like okay, that's good enough, then we need to put the additional effort into making a very compact, tightly integrated, and always working system. And that's it, right? The tractor is the most reliable, dependable machinery out there. And that's the standard in farmers' mind. That's where we need to get.
Certainly, yes. We have also seen that, of course, the farmers, they need to have dependable equipment working under harsh conditions, and providing, let's say, consistent performance. I mean, just to clarify, you highlight robustness in terms of hardware failures, let's say, or in terms of performance in identifying, let's say, the weeds correctly.
I think both. I think both. Given my own expertise, I mean, I'm focusing more on the performance of the software, right, and the accurate performance of the software. But then again, when that gets implemented on a robotic embodiment, then it becomes one whole system, right? So it's the robustness of the whole thing, and then you can of course focus in and then specialize it in robustness of each one of the components.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lazarus.
Excellent. I think that we need to close here. I would like to thank you, Michalis, for the answers and the interaction, all the colleagues for your questions and your participation. Lazarus, especially, even though Lazarus and Panathinaikos, I'm not Paukara, so I'm not going to wish anything about Paukara. So I would like to thank you, all of you. We are going to complete this year's Athena Talks next week with a guest speaker from the University of Glasgow. He's going to speak about the impact of AI to provide solutions for hydroclimatic extremes. So next week, next Friday, we're going to have the last Athena Talk for this semester on the 27th of June at 10 o'clock CET. I hope that you will join. You will receive an email from us in order to update you. So thank you very much, Lazarus, again, for your participation, and I'm looking forward to receive from my colleagues, all these invitations to interact with the community of HMU and more. It will be a great pleasure and honor for us.
Likewise, I'm very, very happy, Konstantina. I'm really glad for the invitation. I had a great time and great discussions. Looking forward to even more.
And I think that you are the best second team in Greece. This is my perception. All right. Thank you. Be safe and speak to you soon. Bye.
Bye.